And okay, got it. Now, I do have a question. I've got this little bar here that I don't want. I'm sure I can put it down one way or the other, but I'm going to move it out of the way at this moment. So guys, hello. I'm going to put this down to nothing so I don't have to deal with it. And I don't care if you're still looking or whatever, but let's get started. Well, this is a STEP class, and they're mental health info sessions for helping professionals. And STEP stands for Science That Explains People. And what we're going to do today is do one of the 4 sessions that was done for Polk County Health Services, especially for children's mental health services. There are 4 virtual sessions on the Zoom platform. This one was the last one. The first one was on Tuesday, May 5th. This one's on Thursday, May 5th. This one is going to be today, if we ever get started, all from 10 to 11 in the morning, and all presented by this lunatic person that you now have online with you. So let's go. We're going to examine the following 4 topics. Number 1, we talked about last session, the very first session, development, how our human brain works and develops. But we're going to move on to behavior, how our survival instincts and temperaments affect our behavior. Then on to adolescence, that's next session, multiply by 10, the special developmental challenges and risks for teens, and distress and trauma. That's our last one. That's mental health management. I'm going to talk about interventions for daily life and different temperaments, and there are 60 ways to stay calm, just to do it ourselves, naked and alone. There's a lot of other things too. You can have another 60 of them. There's lots of things you can do not naked and alone that, you can have a dog that helps you out or a person that helps you out, but there are 60 of them. Now, remember, when adults know how the human brain works and develops and how different children's and teens' brains are, everything changes. We can actually protect everyone better. So let's remember, okay, what's wrong with our little thing here? This is session 2. Okay, I'm going to try to bug around this. Let me see if it's more where I can put this thing down. No, okay, well, so much for that. Just move it out of the way. Okay, let's go. First, we're going to do a little bit of a brief review. When I do a review, I mix some new slides in with the slides from the former session, which is session 1. And then we're going to look at sensations, survival behaviors, and temperament. So, I work with kids. I teach kids. I teach their teachers. And I keep everything simple because of that. And it helps parents when you're talking to parents about children's mental health. I talk about health. Health is when your body is at ease and your mind is in order. And the reason I chose those, you'll see in a second. Now, we have physical health and we have mental health. Physical, we can measure dozens of different ways depending on the test we take, but most of the time we're looking at biological, the composition, how much bone to fat to muscle do you have, coordination, are you balanced and flexible, strength, muscle power, stamina, endurance, and all these when you're ill, you get a little less of those, and when you get older, you get a little less of those. But we measure mental health, and it's called psychological health, by looking at cognitive. I have put executive functions, but it's anything that's thinking or planning or whatever. Emotional, feelings, behavioral, those are actions and interactions, reactions that we have. And social is the interactions we have with others. So it's cognitive, emotional, behavioral, and social is how we talk about psychological or mental health. Now, look, you can get an illness, a physical illness. It's temporary minor disruption to our body's ease. And then you can get diseases. That's lingering, significant disruption to our body's ease. Well, likewise, we can get a mental health illness, temporary minor disruption to our mind's order. And we have decided what mind's order looks like. We have a little book that tells us what what symptoms are showing, is it orderly or not? And you can get a mental disorder. That's lingering, significant disruption to our mind's order. So look, it's, when you have a mental illness, you got a cold of the mind, okay? Take some aspirin, lie down, sleep, do some rest. What I'm trying to tell you is there's nothing to be scared of. Mental illness happens to us when we have grief, when we're just literally tossed around by the feelings of despair. But that doesn't mean it's a disorder unless it lasts. and it lasts longer than is normal, and has lingering significant disruption to how we think. That's probably going to be diagnosed as a disorder. But I want kids not to be afraid of health, mental health or physical health, and they work together. You got to have one to have the other. So, all right, now remember that it means not, or what, are the opposite of what it precedes. So if you have ease, you have a dis-ease. You have order, you have disorders. I hope that is easy to understand. Health is just a body at ease and a mind in order. And when you're ill, it's temporarily, there's a disruption to that. And when you have a disease, there's a lingering, significant disruption. Okay, mental health is more than the absence of an illness or disorder. Being mentally healthy during childhood means reaching developmental and emotional milestones and learning healthy emotional, social coping skills, social emotional skills, and how to cope when there are problems. In other words, learning to be resilient. So if you're resilient, you have some mental health. Now, mental disorders among children are described as serious changes in the way children typically learn, behave, or handle their emotions, which cause distress. Big word, distress, and problems getting through the day. Mental health depends on managing distress, and we need social emotional skills and how to cope and learning to be resilient in order to manage our distress. Now, many children occasionally experience fears and worries and display very disruptive behaviors. Well, these are just symptoms. But if they're serious and persistent and interfere with school or home or play activities, the child may be diagnosed with a mental disorder. So how do you know if a child's mentally healthy? Well, these are some guidelines. These are indicators of children's mental health. They can show affection or friendship. They're resilient, healthy coping skills, positivity and hope. You've got to have hope. Curiosity and motivation, persistence and hardiness, just keep on keeping on, and self-control and self-regulation. Now, when they're minus those, they have less chance of getting through the day well. So they may have a need for someone to help them. Remember, mental health is just more than an absence of an illness or disorder. Just being a kid and getting healthy can give you mental health. Now, this is what Dr. Casalino, who's one of my favorite authors, said. Overall, stress, anxiety, and fear are all enemies of learning. They impair cortical processing, problem solving, and the underlying biochemistry of neuroplasticity. Well, blah, 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 blah. Basically, distress places cognitive neural development on hold, quite literally. And Harvard calls this toxic stress. So overall, anxiety, fear, and they're all enemies of learning. And learning is how you develop. You learn to walk, you learn to talk, you learn to who people are, you learn how to count. What development depends on learning. And distress places cognitive neural development learning on hold. And Harvard calls this toxic stress. Well, look, here's Harvard's 3 levels of stress. And remember, stress is stimulation. You got to have some in your life or you're not going to be okay. There's positive stress, there's tolerable stress, and there's toxic stress. Now, let's talk about positive stress. Positive stress means you've had a new experience that challenges. It's tying your shoes, riding a bike, counting to 10, counting to 100, doing, okay, I'll tell you what gives me stress, algebra. Okay, so a new experience that challenges us. We're going to have brief increases in our stress responses. That means our cortisol level is going to go up, our heart rate's going to go up, our breathing is going to become more ragged, shagged, holding your breath, whatever. But those responses are buffered or mitigated. Mitigated means buffered, reduced, by calming skills, habits, and support. Somebody's going to teach us how to calm ourselves or be with us while we calm ourselves down and support us to stay that way. Now, that's how we develop. Okay, so you need the positive stress. Tolerable stress is mitigated, okay, or reduced or minimized threatening experience. Now, there is an acute, temporary, but serious stress responses. The heart goes up, rate goes up, cortisol goes up, breathing gets ragged, jagged, and holding your breath, which are buffered and mitigated by calming skills and habits and support. Okay, so somebody's there for you. It's kind of like the new experience that challenges. If it's a mitigated, threatening experience, you're getting some help. Now, toxic stress comes from an unmitigated threatening experience. One before was mitigated, this is unmitigated. Acute or prolonged, not acute temporary, but acute or prolonged serious distress response in the absence of buffering, mitigating, calming skills, habit, and support. You become overwhelmed, you become traumatized, you're knocked off the beam. Yeah, that's what we talked about. We call traumatized being knocked off the beam. Now, this is the 3 levels of Harvard stress. What our job is to mitigate or lessen the impact of toxic stress by meeting kids' needs, okay? And teaching them how to, let me get this out of our way, how to calm themselves and how to be more resilient. That's our job. So what we've got to do is move toxic stress to tolerable stress. How do we do that? By meeting children's needs and by teaching them how to calm themselves when their needs aren't met. Toxic stress is there because it's the absence of buffering, mitigating, calming skills, habits, and support. Someone's not meeting my needs, and I don't know how to deal with it when they don't meet my needs. So I'm staying in toxic stress. I'm going to have post-traumatic stress disorder. Do you see what? What we've got to do is find out what makes toxic stress tolerable stress. It's never going to be okay, never going to be positive stress, but you're not going to be mentally ill from it or physically ill as much if you can make it tolerable. Can I manage it? Can I live with it? And toxic stress knocks you off the beam. Tolerable stress puts you on the beam. It doesn't mean you're in perfect balance. You may never be, but you're not knocked off the beam. You may step off it yourself, rest a little bit, but you're not knocked off. What we need to do is focus on not when a child is in toxic stress, I mean, how long they stay there, but help them out of it. What can we do to calm them down and make them less in danger? And that's all we're doing. We're with a tolerable stress. Now, for those of you who didn't attend the session 1, this may be a little bit much for you, but those that attended session 1 should be able to figure this out. Our job is to mitigate children's distress. Mitigate is to buffer or reduce the effect or impact of something negative. Unmitigated means that nothing has buffered or reduced the negative effect or impact. A bulletproof vest mitigates and buffers the negative effects or impacts of a bullet on its target. Look, you can get hit with that vest on, and if it doesn't miss the vest, you're still going to get hurt. You may still have to go to the hospital. You may even have to have surgery, but you're not probably going to die if it hits the vest. That's reducing the impact. Stress is to stimulate, and some stimulation is essential to life. Failure to stimulate an infant can result in failure to thrive, lost development, sometimes death. Distress is to over or understimulate. Boredom is understimulation, and trauma is an extreme level of distress or overstimulation beyond one's ability to cope. Now, that's a very hopeful statement. For if a person can develop protective distress management habits, their own little bulletproof vest, that is great. Those management habits are greater and stronger than their automatic distress reflexes. These habits act like a bulletproof vest to mitigate and buffer the negative effects or impacts of trauma, making it tolerable. And that's really what we want to do. Now, our model for last week was our beam or our seesaw, whatever you want to call it. And I said, life is like being in the middle of a seesaw that's mounted precariously on a very large ball, and meaning that the seesaw is shifting unexpectedly all the time, and it's super sensitive to any adjustments we may make. Now, our only job is to learn how to keep our balance so that we can do everything else in life. And the problem is that we have to learn, develop, and have mental health only when we're in balance. We can only learn, only develop, and have mental health when we're in balance. So for some of us, our mental health is a little precarious in the first place. Well, yeah. Balance is also known as homeostasis. That's chemical balance. Or you can talk about it like life as a mobile balance beam. Our job is to learn how to mount and dismount safely and how to perform on the beam, making everybody happy. To do this, we have to learn how to stay on the beam. And people who learn to stay on the beam and never get off are very exhausted. So it's not easy. because we're not in charge of the beam. Life is. And we do not come into this world knowing anything about the beam, our job, or the consequences of not staying on the beam. That's what life is about. We've got to get taught that. So we really know very little at birth. The experience teaches us or develops us in very positive ways or very negative ways. Now, when life throws us a curveball, see that ball coming at that head, we can be overwhelmed, lose our balance, be knocked off life's seesaw, and be flat on our back on the ground. And we are mentally, emotionally, and sometimes socially overwhelmed. And guess what? Being overwhelmed is the definition of psychological trauma. Yep, that's its definition. Psychological trauma is defined as the level of mental, emotional, or social distress that exceeds or overwhelms one's coping skills and habits. And if you've never been taught coping skills and habits, you're going to be off the beam. Now, psychological trauma exists within the person, not in the event or circumstance. You know, the list of adversities that kids are challenged with, those are adversities outside them. Psychological trauma is what happens to them inside. And we all respond differently to anything challenging or threatening. In other words, to any adversity. The same situation can be mildly inconvenient to one person, absolutely devastating to another. You see this in childhood, dealing with parental divorce. For some kids, it's like, oh my God, why did they wait so long? And for others, they're absolutely devastated. And some people need far more support than others to overcome and recover. And we can't judge them by that because that's who they are. Now, it takes both physical and psychological resilience, and they're essential to mental health. Both physical and psychological resilience require flexibility, strength, stamina, and endurance. That's hardiness. Look at this tree. Being resilient means you can bend without breaking. This tree is coming out. It's growing out of rock, and it's been subjected to a prevailing wind to one side, so it is absolutely bent over. But you know what? It's not just surviving. It's got tons of leaves and as healthy as it can be. It's thriving. It doesn't look like other trees. It's been through a lot, but it can thrive in spite of. And that's what resilience is. Being able to survive or strive or thrive in spite of anything that happens to you. Now, remember, I'm sticking with psychological resilience, so we're not going to have physical anymore. Psychological resilience is defined as the ability to rise to meet those challenges and setbacks, just like our little, clown over here. He just comes up and rises to meet them, to adapt to change, to keep going in the face of adversity and recover, to bounce back. That's what our little clown does. Always ready to take another hit. Now, a layman's definition of psychological resilience is psychological hardiness. Yep, you just keep on keeping on. Now, look, we have a little devil doing a little rope fight with an angel. And you know what? Little devil is our pre-wired automatic survival instincts and reflexes. Do we need to answer anybody's question or something? I'm hearing some talking. So we have a little devil called our pre-wired automatic survival instincts and reflexes. And that's our fight, flight, and freeze. Those are automatic. Those are pre-wired. Those exist for everybody. Everybody's different, but you have one or more of these. And they're going to come whenever you're upset, you're distressed, whatever. Those are automatic. Then you have learned positive stress management habits and support, or you don't have to have them at all. But that's really your trust level of other people, your self-worth, and your motivation. Those are your basic needs. Now, support includes having one's basic needs met and positive stress management habits. So you need support, you need to have your needs met. And if you can't get your needs met, you need these positive distress management habits. Those are the skills and habits that help us mitigate and offset the impact of the reflex distress one feels when one's basic needs are not met. In fact, your reflex distress is fight, flight, and freeze. Whenever you feel that, you need some positive distress management habits. Or you're going to be stuck with your pre-wired automatic survival instincts and reflexes, and you're going to be in juvenile detention. Okay, so I need to get us back so that I can see what's going on. Do we have people without their mute on? Because I'm hearing lots of voices. I'm just checking. Everybody looks to be muted. Okay, that helps. Okay, let's get going. Now, support means having one's needs met, but not everybody has their needs met. In fact, 50% of children today do not have their basic needs met, 50%. But if they don't have their needs met, they're going to need those skills and habits that help mitigate and offset the impact of those reflex distress. We feel anytime we've got a need not met, we feel distressed. When our needs aren't met, we are distressed and we go to fight, flight, freeze, unless we have learned positive distress management habits. And that, my darlings, is terribly important. Now, if you have learned positive stress management habits and you can stay balanced, you will have pro-social learning and development. That's versus anti-social learning and development. Look, development means getting better or improving at something. We can get better at being a negative influence. Okay, now you can reinforce these. Reinforce your pre-wired automatic survival instincts and reflexes. This kid upset, I'll make him more upset. You want to be upset, Buster? Just stick with me. I'm going to make sure I push your buttons all the time. Oh, good. Well, he's not going to build any positive distress management habits because you're not modeling any, or a positive influence. I could actually model a few. I can teach you how to breathe. I can teach you how to move. I can teach you how to, and it has to be appropriate for you. Depending on which one we most use, our survival instincts and reflexes, if we stay there, we're going to get very strong ones, are our learned positive distress management habits. We can use a lot of negative distress management habits, drinking, drugs, whatever. Whatever one we use, we're going to get the result of. And how much we stay balanced. The more learned distress management habits and support we get, the more we will learn to trust people, to have some self-worth, and to be motivated. We'll be balanced. And that gives us a greater likelihood of having some pro-social learning and development. That's a lot on this one page. So let's just make it simple. When you're upset, you're distressed, you're under or overstimulated, and are just absolutely overwhelmed or traumatized, and you want to be all set. In other words, stress sufficiently stimulated to learn and develop, you're going to have to get to homeostasis, balance, biochemically. We studied our biochemicals last time. Mental health and cognitive development only happen when we're in homeostasis or balance. So resiliency is the ability or skill or habit to manage the impact of that distress and to be flexible and bounce back. Whenever we're upset, we need to be all set. We're going to have to reset. Remember, anything that's psychologically overwhelming, in other words, psychologically traumatizing, is likely to knock us down. That is normal for everyone. Just because we're momentarily knocked off the beam does not mean we are not resilient. Don't let anyone tell you you aren't resilient just because you've landed on your back. It's how we face the situation afterwards that defines our level of resilience. How well do we bounce back? And our ability to bounce back is everything. And sometimes you just need to lie there a moment to get our bearings and have somebody give us their hand to help us up. And they may have to help us up 50 times before we're able to get up on our own. Look, there are very few of us who cannot be overwhelmed or knocked down by something adverse. Look at the adversities that kids do. Childhood adversity study, only just studied 10, and there's 66 of those. And you all overcome adversity differently. Some of us go over the wall, some of us go under it, some of us just go through it. And some of us take our own unique route and go around it. And most of us need help. We can't get over that wall without some help. And for many of us, any form of adversity is overwhelming. It doesn't take anything. Just you looking at me funny and I'm devastated. These are examples of psychological resilience. Now, let's look at the big picture. The number one goal of nature, our DNA and our genes, is our survival. That's all DNA cares about. That's what it's assigned, our survival. The number one job of our brain is to OJ, to overreact and jump to conclusions. That's what it's built for. You want it doing anything else? You got to give it experiences. Anything we perceive as challenging, distressing, or threatening automatically triggers survival instincts and reflexes. Guess what? There are our alarms, and there they are: fight, flight, and freeze. And that little gauge over there is our temperament. We'll talk about that later. And my all set's up in the air. But when a situation's not actually threatening, these reflexes can cause our behavior to appear out of control. If I assess the situation as non-threatening and you're over there acting like it's the most threatening thing you've ever seen, well, I can think that your behavior is just not okay. And if these fight, flight, and freeze are not tamed and managed, our survival instincts and reflexes overwhelm us and knock us off the beam. And when they do, that's trauma. And being overwhelmed is being traumatized. Now, you can be traumatized for a very few minutes, and that's okay. That's fine. Get back up. Have somebody help you on the bench. Maybe they stay on the beam with you. It doesn't matter. Being knocked off is not the big thing. Getting back up is. And the goal of nurture, our experiences, our nurturing experiences, are to tame our survival reflexes. That's the whole purpose of them. We don't want to get rid of our fight, flight, and freeze or our temperament. That helps us. We're surviving because of it. We just want to tame them, make sure that we're in control of them. We let them out whenever we want to. They don't attack us. Remember, this is from session 1, our reward center. Look, those needs that we have that are biological, breath, water, air, sleep, rest, food, a place to be, and sex, whatever. Those are all our comforts. Those are our comfort things. And safety, psychological safety, physical safety, financial safety. There's some consistency in our life and some choice and control. And when we take choice and control away from our adolescents, which is what they're supposed to be learning, and we are not consistent with them, we're over the moon all the time because we're upset, we don't ever model for them, well, they can't feel safe. If you don't feel safe and you don't have your basic needs, your sleep and water and rest and, trust doesn't build. You're missing trust, and trust is important. Now, look, you need belonging and bonding. That's connection and compassion. Okay, belonging and bonding. Hey, if you can't connect with somebody who has compassion for you, you're not going to connect. If they don't have compassion for you, you're not connecting. And you have to have some self-esteem. You have to feel competent in something, if it is making the ugliest face that everybody is in the class can't make one this ugly. Somewhere to start. You got to tell me I'm competent in something and that I contribute. Because when I'm sent out of that class, I am told automatically, without words, you're not competent and you can't contribute. And I lose my self-worth. And that makes me lose my motivation, my confidence. Now, if you think a child isn't motivated, I want you to blow up this little chart. I want you to laminate it and put it on the wall and ask yourself what he's missing. Because this is one of the things, one of the psychologists, Maslow, that was actually proven by neuroscience. Look, there's self-worth and trust, and there's motivation. They offset fight, flight, and freeze. And they are good for our brain. When our needs are met, we're more likely to be calm, to be able to listen and learn, to think clearly, and manage our own mental health and behavior. Calm rescues us. But if I can't get these, nobody's going to worry about my trust, my self-worth, and motivation. Then I have to, and I have to have some skills and habits when my needs aren't met. So you either meet my needs. That's the whole goal of meeting your needs, is managing your survival reflexes. Or you leave me in survival and teach me how to manage those fight, flight, and freeze the hard way. That rescues us. Now, when our needs are not met, we fear for our well-being and we're distressed. It's not a, conscious thing. Anxiety, tension, nervousness, anger, worry, boredom, and trauma, those are anytime. We have an alarm go off. We don't know what to do when the alarm goes off. We're upset. All our blood oxygen energy goes over to being upset. And our little all set is just hanging up there on the board. Nobody's taught us how to make balance happen. Now, neuroscience has made us re-examine unmitigated distress in all its forms and think and talk about it differently. Unmitigated distress interferes with learning and brain development. And the most important thing that we're doing is learning and brain development. It takes place between birth and age 25 to 30. That's all we're doing, is building a basic brain. We don't have one when we come. We have a basic survival system. The earlier unmitigated distress happens in a life, the more undermining and damaging it is. Because kids can't protect themselves. But no matter when you get them, anything you can teach them that will lessen the toxic stress, the toxic chemicals in their body, will make an improvement in their lives. Ooh, look at that, nerves. Oh, I meant to say neurons. Now look, these are systems of the human body. That keeps our body at ease and our mind in order. We've got a skeleton covered by muscles. We got skin, hair, and nails. We have respiratory breathing. We have blood circulation. We have solid waste elimination. Water waste elimination. We have endocrine hormones. And then we have lymphatic inflammation control and reproduction. And then there comes our nervous system. Our neurons and networks communicate between and coordinate all other human body systems. All of these 10 systems are negotiated, communicated, coordinated by our nervous system. So you think that baby and it were really important? Whoa, mama. By the way, our nervous system makes everything else work. Dum, da-dum, dum, dum, da-dum. Now, look, experience and stimulation shape our neural architecture. Now, when somebody says that, I basically talk about our networks. Look, I've got pictures of networks here. 100 billion neuron, 100 billion 1 month, 100 billion 6 months, 100 billion 2 years. What? Yeah, those are the same number of neurons. What has happened is they've been stimulated. They have grown to reach another one and they've networked. Whoa! We learned this last time. How our neurons work is how our cell phones and computers work. We all arrive with all our neurons. We arrive with 100 billion in our brain, trillions in our body, but only 25% have been pre-wired or networked. At birth, we got 100 billion in our brain and trillions in our body, but they don't look like the ones at 2 years. What can a newborn baby do? We said last week, eat, sleep, leak, squeak, and poop. That's its entire repertoire. The other 75% of our neurons are waiting for life to provide the experiences. And if they're nurturing experiences, I'm going to network. And if they aren't nurturing experiences, I'm not going to network these experiences. Positive nurturing experiences. I should change that slide, shouldn't I? Move this out of the way. Positive nurturing experiences wire and connect neurons into networks, and that's development. And negative, harmful stimulation simply reinforces our fight, flight, and freeze. They get bigger and better while we do not develop. Not a good scene. All right, now, the neurons that are working, forming networks, get fed. This is really a very important fact. And I'm talking about food in the body. I'm talking blood, oxygen, energy, or BOE. That's the little bitty fish, okay? And the big fish is experience and stimulation. And just as in the sea, our little fish are following the big fish around. So wherever our experience sends us, does it send us to fight, flight, and freeze, or to trust, self-esteem? Oh, yeah. Or motivation? Yeah, you got to, well, you can do it 2 ways. Now, the neurons and networks that are stimulated by experience and the neurons and networks that are working get the blood, oxygen, energy. And those that are not stimulated starve. Use it or lose it. Whatever we are doing gets the most of our blood, oxygen, energy, and everything we do takes energy. So during childhood, we cannot afford to waste any. And worry, fretting, being angry, all of these are wasting energy. And we watch parents do that and we think that's normal. We do that because they do it. Yeah. So who else needs to know these positive distress management skills? Well, the person teaching them, modeling them. Yeah. Now, the reason our brain can do all of this is called neuroplasticity. Look, neuroplasticity simply means our networks are like plastic. They're easy to change and alter over and over like Play-Doh. You can take them out and just, well, you can't take them out, but you can mess with them over and over. When we replace our experiences and actions with new ones, and we repeat the new ones, our old ones get weaker and the new ones get stronger, and we change our brain's architecture. New habits mean new networks. Let me explain this. What we practice and repeat wires and rewires our brain instantly. Now, it's not going to undo everything that was done all at once, because what if I am going in a direction, okay? And I find out, oh my God, I'm only strengthening my fight, flight, and freeze behaviors, which are automatic. I'm just getting worse and worse and worse. I need to change. And I've been spending all my blood, oxygen, energy and making my fight, flight, and freeze bigger and better. I'm going to change course. Okay, I'm going to go in a different direction, which means I'm splitting my blood, oxygen, energy because I haven't built a network yet. I'm working on a new network, but it takes time to build that network. But I'm building it one little strand at a time. And you know what? If I keep doing the new one, I am going to simply starve the other one out of existence. So then I have all my blood, oxygen, energy going to where I needed to go. And I have new networks. How many times you've changed a habit in your life? You've decided to do something different. It's hard, but once you've done it, it's a great feeling. Now, if you're upset and you want to be all set, remember life's a seesaw. And staying balanced as much as possible is resilience. Staying where the power is, staying right in the middle is where all the power is. And you can shift your weight to either side to favor it. So you can shift your weight to favor either side. Now, you can only reset when we're balanced. In other words, when we're calm or in homeostasis. Let's think about this. When you're upset, you want to be all set. Oh, what if you're really upset? Oh my God, we need to know what to do when our internal alarms go off because our fight, flight, and freeze is going to go crazy. Oh, look at that. Look what our little guy in the middle did. Oh, he is a superhero. He moved over and gave a lot of weight to my little brain that's, trying to develop. And he made me calm. And calm is biochemically balanced. And how reliably we can find calm and balance is our state of resilience. And the single most important habit we can build is being able to reset. When you're upset, you want to be all set, you've got to build reset. Do I know what to do when I'm upset? Can I calm myself? Is it my habit? Do I have people around me to help me? Is there someone who's going to be patient enough that if I need to do this 60, 70, 80, 200 times, they're going to help me do it? They're going to model it for me all the time. Now, we can redirect our blood oxygen energy anytime we want to. We just have to do it. And that makes us resilient. You can be knocked down, you be knocked off the beam, but resilience means I'm going to spend my blood oxygen energy a different way than I would have some time ago. I have a new habit. Now, starving networks change the brain architecture. We have two sets of graphics here, normal networks and starved networks. You haven't, and look, let's talk about this. Prefrontal cortex and hippocampus. Those are both in our, if you put your hand on your forehead, it's your prefrontal cortex. That's thinking and executive functions. You make a little knot, a fist, and that's in the center of your brain. That's what the hippocampus is located along with all your emotions. And it's in charge of memory, long-term memory, of positive memories. So it's positive memories and thinking and planning and learning, developing, cognitive development. Those two are in charge. That's what these pictures are. So you have normal networks in the hippocampus and the prefrontal cortex and starved networks. Now, look, when we're upset, our blood oxygen and energy are diverted away from our PFC and hippocampus to feed our alarm system, okay? We get starved networks. Now, typical neurons, that's the top one, are new connections. The networks increase. And the disrupted connections, they used to call it damaged, but I don't call it damaged anymore. I call it disrupted because I know it can be repaired because I know about neuroplasticity. Isn't it fun? Now, that's disrupted connection. So the networks shrink because they're being starved. All your blood oxygen energy isn't going to the ones in charge of development. They are instead, the longer we're upset, the stronger our alarm system network gets. And look, all the blood oxygen energy is going to being alarmed. And the weaker our cognitive developmental health works. So we need lots of calming habits and lots of very calm adult support. And you know what? When you look at the way children grow up today, they don't get a lot of calm anything. We have upset schools and upset parents and upset communities, and we just don't model it. Okay, so let's talk about behavior. 10:47, we have 45 minutes. We're in good shape. 15 minutes to 10:30, half an hour to 11. Is it 11:30? Can we go to? Oh, good. All right, so let's go. Behavior. Everybody ready? Since being calm is the only behavior that gets us anywhere and keeps us on the beam. In other words, to behave is to be calm. We must teach and learn how to behave, be calm in every setting and situation. Now, behavior, all behavior has a purpose. All of it. Every behavior ever known to man has a purpose. Behavior is an observable outside sign of what's going on in the inside of an individual. I've got two babies here. Which child is calm? Sound like a dumb question? Well, no, absolutely not. How did we know which one was calm? We assessed his or her behavior. All we did was a little momentary assessment of his or her behavior. And we said, oh, the baby on the right is calm. I want my baby to look like that. What can I do? Well, it's really amazing. The person who carries a baby around for the first 6 weeks to 6 months. Yeah, 6 months to 6 weeks. So I bet whoever carries that baby around most during that 6-week or 6-month period is going to set how that baby breathes. Because remember, the baby comes out of the room gasping, just really upset, screaming and crying, everything else. And somebody's got to calm it down. So whoever's holding that baby, if they're patient with the baby, they pat them on the back, put them on their shoulder, sing and rock to them. They know this baby's going to calm down at some point, and they're breathing. The person who's holding that baby is so calm. Their breathing is regular. 4 seconds in, 4 seconds out. They're humming, which helps their breath be out longer and it's in. And when it is, the person holding that baby is calm. That person's modeling calm behavior for that baby. And that baby's soaking it up and knows, I can be calm. I've realized that I can be calm. I was screaming a moment ago, but I'm calm now. I don't have the name for it. They don't even realize maybe what's going on, but they have had the knowledge that they can get calm. Now, what if the person holding them is a nervous wreck, heart is pounding, breathing irregularly, being passed from one child to another, or not being held at all? Yeah, okay. This is how our behavior operates. You have upset and all set, ready for cognitive development, executive functions. Oh, boy, upset. Great. Now, look, you have an accelerator on the upset, brakes on the reset. Faster with the accelerator, slower with the brakes. Then you have your steer and shift as all set. You make the decision of how you're going to work. But when you have no blood oxygen energy going to the brakes, steering and shifting is really dangerous because you could going too fast to make a turn. This is how it works. Nature, our automatic distress reflexes, they prepare us to escape or survive. Okay. Nurture, our nurturing experience, our pro-social habits, calm us down, maintain homeostasis. And then that means you can work. You can steer and shift in any direction you want because you're going the right speed. Let's look at this. Our accelerator is pre-wired by DNA. It can be strengthened by our automatic reflex actions to non-nurturing experiences. Anytime we have a non-nurturing experience, a dangerous experience, a starving experience, whatever, it's operated automatically by our survival system. Our survival system is in charge. We must learn to use our brakes. As our nurturing experiences teach us how to react to non-nurturing experiences. When it's going too fast, we hit the brake. Now, nurturing experiences teach us and wire us to know how, when, and how much to apply our brakes in different situations in order to maintain homeostasis. If you're going 70 miles an hour, you may take your foot off the gas and just put it on the pedal slowly so as not to flip your car by stepping on the brakes. So, and you're going 30 miles an hour, you might be able to make a curve 30 miles an hour and not step on your brake at all. But if you're going to turn a corner, you might need a little slow. Yeah, all those different circumstances to life. In class, I need to be on slow to start with. Because if I'm on fast and accelerator, I may be acting out or I might not listen as well. We are on go all the time until we apply the brakes. That's just the way we're built. Resilience is how well and how quickly we apply the brakes to take life's curves. Okay. And it only works when we're in homeostasis, when we don't have too much speed and we're not braking all the time. We're kind of balanced on the wheel and we know what to do. And whenever we get to a new curve, we've been through that curve before, we know there's gravel, and you understand what I'm talking about? Okay, so I'm going to move this little piece up here and put it down at the bottom again. We have automatic fight, flight, freeze behaviors. These are the survival reflexes in response to a perceived threat. And the threat doesn't have to be real. It just has to, you have to perceive that it's real. So if you don't see a threat, doesn't mean somebody else doesn't. That's the alarm goes off for that person. And they blow their head, scream for help. That's normal. But you can do certain things. This is your automatic fight, flight, and freeze. Physical, hitting, biting, spitting, etc. That's fighting. Verbal, cursing, yelling, hateful words. Others, bullying, threats, controlling, manipulating, passive aggressive, all those are the fight mode. How are you? And flight, it's not always just running away or truant. Sometimes it's clowning so that you can escape whatever. And when a person's, we have someone talking again. Can we put it on mute? Because it's going to be in our recording. Okay, some people are just running away. and truant. And it's not always running away or truant. Sometimes it's clowning. So you're in an uncomfortable position and you laugh. There are people who giggle at funerals because they're so uncomfortable. They do not know how to manage that emotion. But, they're not being ugly. They're just out of control. Or some people just daydream. The moment you make them uncomfortable, they go into a daydream. They've got a daydream handy for everything in the world. They sit there beautifully in class, smiling sweetly at you all day because they're daydreaming. You just made them uncomfortable. Some people clown, some people run away or turn. That's flight. Sometimes you use drugs. If you're using drugs, you're running away. Or maybe you're shutting down. That's freezing. Stuffing it down or hiding or fainting. Oh, some people, you walk into a room and something's going on. They've got a dead body in the room. They just faint. Or self-harm. That's the most extreme. Sometimes we do all of these. Now, look, I'm going to move this little thing up here at the top. What this is basic fear, frustration, discomfort, distress, anxiety, trauma, whatever it is. And you're filled with anger, rage, aggression, helplessness, and hopelessness. And when you had helplessness and hopelessness, for the person who freezes, that's self-harm. For the person who runs, that's running away or through it. And for people who fight and they hit hopelessness, it's to take out the freaking world. They're so angry at everything that's out there. So you don't ever want to get to helplessness and hopelessness, because anger, rage, and aggression is just escalated when nobody does anything at all about these except make you more angry. These are help me behaviors. Nature's immediate response is automatic, and what offsets its immediate response must be learned. So it's going to take time to teach you. If we started with every baby making sure they knew how to be calm, every toddler knew how to calm themselves, every elementary school could teach sessions on calming. You can see the video, the kids doing that. And teenagers, you have to teach them again because they just lost what you taught them in middle school, elementary. So you teach them differently. But look, it's got to be learned. And these are just screams for help. This is screams for help. We get that with the freeze people. Stuffing down, hiding, fainting, self-harm. We want to rush over there to help them. But we don't feel the same way about fight or flight. And actually, there's a fourth one called appease. And it's not wired in to start with. It's actually created by modeling and reinforced over and over again, jumping through hoops. In other words, doing something to make somebody else happy all the time. That's all you do. Your life is somebody else's be happy. That's called appeasing. But that's not all. All of us have different triggers that set off our automatic distress alarm. So we're just really different. If any of our needs are not met, for some people, they can be hungry for a long period of time. Others can't be hungry 2 minutes because they're about to kill you if they are. Look, sounds, gestures, words, touches, smells, it includes hunger, fatigue, thirst, boredom, feeling unimportant, ignored or put down, that we don't belong, afraid we won't know the answer, or someone will make fun of us, we're insecure. That can trigger anything. And any form of physical or psychological discomfort or pain. I'm being abused at home. I'm going to act out at school, or anything that reminds us of the past trauma. All of those things are triggers. Do I know what my trigger is? Well, I definitely have one for eating. Because if you don't let me eat, you're going to have problems. Now, temperament. It describes a person's personal style. In other words, the way he or she experiences the world. It's different than personality. Personality is built over time. Temperament, you get, it's part of your DNA. Okay. It's part of our pre-wired 25%. We're wired with it already. Some people are in the green, some are in the yellow, some are the orange, and some of us are born in the red and stay there. And generally, there are 5 characteristics that describe one's temperament. Activity level. Are you very active or not active? I'm so active, I can't sit down for like half an hour. I would be out of my mind. Sociability. Are you cautious around others or outgoing? I don't like people. Frustration tolerance. Easily frustrated, more tolerant of frustrating situations. I am easily frustrated. Emotional intensity and reactivity. Quiet or less reactive, more noisy and more reactive. More noisy, more reactive. Coping with change. Are you disturbed by almost any change or very tolerant of change? Look, we all have different temperaments. As parents, how the person was as an infant, a baby, or toddler. And by the way, you can get these at it's a wonderful explanation of temperament as opposed to personality at 0 to 3, birth to 3, it's 0 to 3. Now, temperament determines how much we perceive anything to be bothersome, uncomfortable, painful, or threatening, and how much we react to it. So if you don't think things, if you just think everything's green and hunky-dory or yellow or, but if it's in the red, you can't tolerate it, well, how much are you going to react? Now, each of us is pre-wired with our sensitivity to distress, pain, and trauma. Does this do anything for you? For some people, it's like they're laughing at that, and others are holding their cheek, running away. Look, temperament is our sensitivity to distress. How much something hurts us, okay? Let's look over on the left-hand side. Same situation. There are different automatic survival reflexes. We all know what they are, okay? Do we know what they are? Can you answer that question? Yes.
Sorry to interrupt. I don't think the slides are moving for everyone. It's just blank right now. I'm not sure if they're supposed to be.
Okay, let's do it again.
Okay.
There, you see that?
No, all it says is automatic fight, flight, freeze behaviors. And then survival reflexes in response to a perceived threat. And then it's all white. We can't see anything else.
Oh, no, it should be all white.
Okay, sorry. Some people were asking, so I wasn't sure if there was an issue.
I haven't filled it in.
Okay.
Wait for the animation. I do it in stages because it's too much to take in as a whole chart.
Perfect. Thank you.
So just be patient, my little chickadees. In the same situation, we have different automatic survival reflexes, and that's fight, flight, and freeze. Now, at the top, we have 4 different temperaments: mellow, sensitive, highly sensitive, and hypersensitive. Mellow's in the green, stays in the green most of the time. Sensitive is in the yellow, stays in it most of the time. Highly sensitive in the orange, and hypersensitive is in the red. I will tell you already, born in the red, stay in the red all the time. I'm one of the few of them. I'm one of the few people that are hypersensitive that is actually on the outside of bars, okay? So let's go with this. When anything happens to make a person upset, Mr. Mello gets just concerned and frustrated. That's all he ever does. I'm hypersensitive. I married Mr. Mello. Oh my God, that man never got upset over anything. He modeled being calm all the time. He could tell me how to be calm in 60 ways. I could have ripped his lips off. But I learned from him instead, which is why I'm not behind bars today. Miss Sensitive gets worried, and she gets so worried she gets weary. She stays in the yellow a lot of the time. She goes over to the orange once in a while, but she gets worried about anything that's upsetting. She's just, you probably work with her. Highly sensitive. Now, these are anxious and snarky. I love these people. I know where they are at all times. A lot of people just don't want to be around them, but I do. And hypersensitive, they're angry, hateful, and hurtful. Know all your buttons and push them anytime. I do that a lot less now, thanks to my husband. Now, if you're a person who runs, say Mr. Mello is a runner. He's not a fighter. Now, Mr. Mello was a fighter. Sensitive was a fighter. Highly sensitive was a fighter. Hypersensitive. Now, Mr. Mello is going to be running. Mr. Mello hides out, right? Just rides it out, whatever it is. He's going to ride it, or he's going to run toward the problem. These are your firefighters and police officers, and you have them in all the categories, but most of them ride it out whenever they're upset, or just run toward the problem and solve the problem. Yeah. Or Miss Sensitive daydreams for escape. Remember the person who just flat daydreams? Okay, yeah, that's sorry. Highly sensitive is absent and sent out of the room. Now think about this. If I'm a kid who doesn't like to read ever in public, I get sweaty all over. I have, double vision. I don't like to read. And the teachers just said to me, you're going to have to read in 20 minutes. Prepare yourselves. Well, I'm preparing myself. I'm stalking the guy next to me. The teacher goes, oh, no, that's an inappropriate behavior. You must remove yourself from the class. Well, God, I'm so glad, and I don't have to read, and I've won. And you go, well, no, you got a reputation. You've been sent out of the room. This is not what you want. I want not to read is all I know, and I got my way. So highly sensitive, really, if I'm an educator, I really need to know what pushes this kid's buttons. Hypersensitive, hey, I'm not staying here. If I'm a runner, I'm out of here. I'm truant. I'm gone. So now we've done fight, we've done flight, and now let's do freeze. If Mr. Mello were a freezer, He'd just be quiet and pensive. You could tell because he just, folds up into himself and sits there. Sensitive, hesitating, halting. You can't, she's know every answer to every question on the test, but if you ask her orally to give the answer, she's going to hesitate, halt, and absolutely panic. And highly sensitive just hunkers and hides out. Hey, I can be in this school all day long, and I will leave when I'm ready, but you're not going to find me because I'm hiding. And hypersensitive freezer shuts down. Is more likely to do self-harm, suicide, than any other group. So you can see if you're a runner or you fight, you flight, you freeze. That's one thing. But so your temperament makes a difference. We have automatic survival reflexes, those instincts that we go to instantly. And the military teaches us these. Fight until you can fight no more, run until you can run no more, freeze until you can't freeze anymore, and come out and fight again. Some people use all of them, depending on the situation. But most of us have a home base. And all of us need to know what our temperament is like. When I found out, because I had no feedback system when I was upset, that's one of the things that go out with being upset. You have fight, flight, and freeze. And I needed food. And the teacher told me I couldn't have a snack. I wanted to smack her. Now, look, hunger, fatigue, and being upset just cranks up our mellow, sensitive, highly sensitive, wherever we are, whichever one of these we live in, cranks it up. And Mr. Mellow becomes like sensitive, and sensitive becomes like highly sensitive. Highly sensitive becomes like hypersensitive. Oh, hey, where does hypersensitive go? To harmful. Yeah. You mess with me, you block my way, and you don't show me another way.
Hello.
I'm taking you out.
Yeah, that's fine.
We're making sounds again. Okay. Are we okay with this? Now, how much of a reaction do we give? In the same situation, we have different automatic reactions. This is a person who smashes his thumb with a hammer. Now, we've set the hammer up. It's going to smash the same intensity every time. If Mr. Mellow gets his thumb done, he hollers and puts the hammer down. Miss Sensitive drops the hammer and begins to cry. I call it Miss Sensitive because there are 60% female in the sensitive range and 40% male. Highly sensitive curses and tosses the hammer away, and hypersensitive uses every curse word just in the name, makes them up, beats the hammer until it's smashed to little pieces, and throws it all across the room. Feels so good. So those are your different automatic reactions. Now, which one's the hardest to calm down? Oh, really? Which one needs the most help? And which one's the least likely to be helped? Which means that's why they get worse and worse and worse until they're detained and out of everybody's way. Because they have absolutely no models. And while they're in the detention center, if they do not get any models, they're going to come out the same way, and even worse sometimes. You want to know a great one out in Oregon? I think it's Mariposa County, Butterfly County, I think it's called, detention center. They are remarkable, remarkable. They do the most amazing rehab of kids I've ever seen in my life. But they start by understanding how much of a reaction you're going to give me and what can I teach you immediately to change that reaction. Now, look, I'm going to tell you something. The intensity and duration of King's cortisol, and we learned last time in our session 1, cortisol is a chemical that comes up whenever we're distressed. The intensity and duration of teens cortisol, the chemical that we make inside our own bodies. During the teen years, distress adds more cortisol and it lasts longer in duration. Mr. Mellow gets 2 times the amount of cortisol and it lasts 2 times longer. Sensitive gets 3 times the cortisol, lasts 3 times longer. Highly sensitive gets 4 times the cortisol and 5 times longer. And hypersensitive gets 5 times the cortisol and it lasts 5 times longer. So as a teenager, you thought I was bad as an elementary school student? Wait till I got to be a teen. And if you hadn't taught me how to calm down before then, I'm not sure how long it would take me. But I would need models around me all the time. People that I couldn't tick off no matter what I did. And those are rare. Anything challenging, distressing, or threatening increases cortisol. And if you're a teenager, this is what you're going to bring to the surface. Now, Mr. Mellow, can make it through. Sensitive can make it through. Highly sensitive can make it through. Hypersensitive has the most trouble. Now, when what are they called? People who study human beings, the nature of human beings. They say, look, there's about 30% of us that are mellow, 30% of us are sensitive, 30% that are highly sensitive, that's 90%, and 10% of us that are hypersensitive. And when they look at history, they go, well, there's about 10% of us that are wired to be the safety patrol, the fighters, okay, military. We're out there and we're dangerous. We've got to make them fit in. Now, which columns are most likely, mellow, sensitive, highly sensitive, or hypersensitive, to do the following? Be more sensitive when others are impatient and say, hurry. Be more sensitive to normal challenges and to any adversity. Use the most energy and waste the most energy. Be hungry or starving more often. Sleep less well, show agitation quicker and longer, and require longer and more intensive instruction and practice to build calming habits. Why, my goodness, those two? Why are we surprised when they need more time and lots more skills and have a lot less patience? Which columns, mellow, sensitive, highly sensitive, or hypersensitive, have a lack of trust in others in the system? Feel unsafe, both psychologically and physically. Have the least control or choice in their lives and feel the least connected to society. Why? There they are. Which are more likely to be suspended, to be expelled, to be in the juvenile justice system, use psychoactive drugs, and either cause themselves physical harm. Because remember, your hypersensitive shutdown person is the most likely to commit suicide. The freezer. Now, our sensations and emotions are both called feelings. Think about this. We are 85% physical senses and sensations, okay? And 50% mental emotions. So physical sensations are always first. You have blood pressure, you have your heart speed, respiration, blood pressure, body temperature, muscles, tension, all that's first, okay? And then second, you name the emotion. Well, let's think about this. Everything begins with the body. So if you can calm the body down, emotions will follow. Think about this. Sensations, emotions, when we are calm. A steady, regular heartbeat, 60, 80 beats per minute. How often do you check? Open esophagus and deep, regular breathing out longer than the in breath. You're using your belly breathing, your deep esophagus, regular breathing. You are diaphragmatic breathing. Relaxed muscles and dry skin and palms and happy digestion and elimination. Ooh, you have restful alertness, little or no pain, a sense of stillness, quiet, peace, ease, contentment, satisfaction. You're full of serotonin. You're full of serotonin, dopamine. Oh my God, endorphins. You're wonderful. You're safe, trusting, supported, and confident. Only 30% of our kids are. You're full of serotonin, oxytocin, dopamine, and endorphin, and just enough norepinephrine to be really interested in life, just excited and going. That's when we're calm. That's when we're ready to learn. That's when we're going to develop. Oh, it's so cool. But what are the sensations, emotions when related? Rapid heartbeat. Oh, short, rapid, labored breathing or holding our breath. Oh, sweaty palms and muscles that are tense and stomach flips and digestive and elimination upsets. Oh my God. A sense of tension, nervousness, excitement, thrill, exhilaration, exuberant, ecstatic. Oh, we call that motivation like love, joy, passion. Ooh, feels so good. I love it, love it, love it. You know what? You can't maintain that long. You'll pass out. You'll have a heart attack because you're full of adrenaline, cortisol, serotonin, oxytocin, dopamine, and dynamite, endorphin all at once. And you are in love. No wonder you can't think. But when you're distressed, you have a rapid heartbeat, short, rapid labored breathing or holding your breath. Muscles are tense and palms are sweaty and palm flips and digestive and elimination upsets. You have a sense of nervousness and tension and anxiety and hunger and sleepiness and tired, exhausted, physical discomfort, pain, dis-ease, traumatized, fear, insecurity, unsafe, overwhelmed, full of cortisol and adrenaline. But you know what? The sensations I was feeling, my heartbeat, my breathing, my muscles, and so forth, and my sense of tension and so forth, looked very much like I was elated. Look, it's really hard to maintain rage without the underlying chemistry and sensations. If I change my chemistry and I change my heart rate and breathing and everything else, I can change my rage. I lower my rage. The moment I lower my breathing rate, my heart rate, all of those things. And that's true for every emotion as well. It takes chemistry and sensations to support our emotions because our body comes first and we're required to learn how to be in charge of both. Look, check the body first. It starts with the body. When we're calm, when we're distressed, take action, change the body's physical responses first. Calm the body. Do that through your breathing. That lowers your heart rate. That lowers your blood pressure. It relaxes your muscles. You know how women have a baby? They breathe. That relaxes. They push and then they breathe. Diaphragm, blow out, blow out, blow out. All right, here's a bit more of a review before we go. The value of being calm. Everything depends on neurons and their biochemistry. Our neural biochemistry makes it possible for us to listen, focus, concentrate, remember, contribute, think rationally, self-regulate, be patient, courteous, have compassion and empathy, recover from psychological trauma, behavioral health problems, stay physically and psychological health, and be resilient and recover from injury, but only when we first feel calm. So if we're not teaching how people to calm down just for a second, and never in the history of calming down has anyone ever calmed down being told to calm down. And not everyone has experienced being calm. Listen, those babies who aren't picked up, who aren't nurtured, who aren't taught how to breathe and that can actually calm themselves down may have never been calm in their lives. Not everyone has practiced getting and staying calm, and not everyone feels that it's important. Do I know what it feels like to be calm? I did not know. What does it look like and sound like? I did not know. And can I produce a feeling of calm at will? I didn't know. And do I value being calm? Do I want to be calm? I did not. I had grown up having to fight for life, and luckily my temperament was such that I took you out before you took me out, and I thought that was life. I thought everybody was that way. I didn't value being calm, so when you said to me, be calm, you were saying to me, be vulnerable. And that's a lot of our kids in detention. If you say to me, be calm, you're telling me to be vulnerable, then anybody can get me. I have to be on my toes and protecting my own back because nobody protects my back. Look, the number one job of adults is teach children to see how to calm themselves when they're naked and alone, and identify their triggers, their sensations, and their emotions, and ask and know who, when, and how to ask for help. What needs to be taught until they've got it as a habit. And the first and most important question for children when it comes to mental health is, do I know how to calm myself in all situations? And can I do it naked and alone? And have I practiced it? It become a habit like walking and talking. I couldn't walk and talk when I came into this world. I had to learn how. Now, diaphragmatic breathing can change everything. It changes our biochemistry. It calms us, relaxes, it directs our blood oxygenation toward development, and strengthens our immune system. Why wouldn't you want to do it? Because some of us have never found our diaphragm. It's our primary breathing pump. It's belly breathing. Taking air in is operated by our spinal nerves in charge of survival, and letting air out is operated by our vagal nerves called our compassionate nerves. When we breathe out longer than we breathe in, we calm ourselves. So, you know what? Laughter, singing, humming, whistling, all of those do naked and alone. We can do them all by ourselves. And they all calm us. Why do you think they have us blow out whistle at night? Night is scary. If you're whistling, you're keeping yourself calm. It's also the pump for our lymphatic system, by the way, part of our immune system, in charge of our lymph nodes, cleaning our blood, and toxins, and controlling inflammation. It's just the best thing you can have. Look, our kids are not only a little balance beam. That balance beam is high in the air on a tiny little thread, and they've got to balance themselves. And they're full of cortisol. Everything in life is making them crazy. They need serotonin. They need her. She's queen of the body. Oh, you know what? With enough serotonin, which you get from belly breathing, you get less cortisol. Dr. Dopa, baby. Oh, mama, that's a good one to have. You get less dopamine. Oh, yeah, that's good. Thumbs up. Oxytocin, that's about trust. Your mothers need it. Less cortisol. Endorphins, our body's own painkiller, our body's own morphine. Anandamide, our body's THC, our body's own morphine. What is the other called? Is that THC, marijuana? You get less. And if you have some protective skills and habits like belly breathing, you can actually take cortisol out and put norepinephrine in. That's interest and focus. You want norepinephrine. Look, this is called homeostasis or chemical balance. And very few kids ever get that. Now, the morphine molecule mimics our body's natural endorphin. Our endorphins are psychological and physical painkillers. This is what they use in cancer treatment centers. They teach you how to breathe to manage your pain so you can give you less pain medication. Now, we can build endorphins on demand when we're active and moving, laughing, hardly exercising, or do deep, slow belly breathing. If we don't feel like doing anything else, just breathe out slowly. Look, our natural endorphin is so much more powerful than morphine. And when you're doing belly breathing, you're demanding it. Laughter is one of the best belly breathings there is. And guess what? Marijuana's THC molecule mimics our natural anandamide. The nerve cell receptor is our nerve cell receptor in our brain. Anandamide is what it was built for, and THC is what we replaced anandamide with because we don't want to take the time to build it. Anandamide produces a feeling of calm, well-being, and bliss. It's called a bliss chemical. It works with serotonin to help our bodies regulate functions ranging from appetite, sleep, mood regulation, neuroprotection, immune function, pain management, and even fertility. And if we taught little kids how to do it, they would be full of this stuff too and know how to do it for the rest of their lives. We can build anandamide on demand by belly breathing, deep, slow breathing out, smiling, laughing, giving. Anything we do that helps someone else builds our THC. Yeah. Because we're belly breathing. Now, endorphin and anandamide deficiencies, you bet we have them. Almost everybody in our country has them. Because you must have dopamine present before you have access to endorphins and anandamide. When we're low on dopamine, we're low on endorphins and anandamide. And when you have a dopamine deficiency, you have an endorphin and anandamide deficiency. And physical and psychological pain become more intense and less manageable. And you cannot find calm and comfort, and you're distressed, and the more cortisol is released, and it becomes a big old damn circle. Look, ghrelin and hunger, that's the hangries. That's my trigger. And I have to listen to someone else because I don't have the feedback system once I get upset. When I get hungry, there's no control in me. And I have to have a friend say to me, eat. Hangs out with the best friends of cortisol, unless you have good friends that go, oh, look, I have something here for you. Put it in your mouth. Oh, stop putting your foot in your mouth. Ghrelin is made in our stomachs and gut and lymph. It stimulates the feeling of starvation and production of fat. Leptin is full and satisfied. It hangs out with the best friend, serotonin. So if I'm creating serotonin, it's made in our fat cells and stimulates contentment, relaxation, and restfulness. Oh, God, it's so good. And when you're not depressed, your prefrontal cortex is getting all your blood, oxygen, and energy. Yes. But when you are depressed, guess what? It all goes to your amygdala. Too much cortisol and too little dopamine for too long results in increased risk of anxiety, followed by depression, lack of anger control, sleep abnormalities, craving of starches and sweets, mood swings, and the extreme suicidal thoughts. Now, where are all these biochemicals made? Mostly in our two brains, and everything's connected. Our brain and our guts are, your mood and your bladder, your gut bacteria are absolutely connected. And so, when you're talking about a child's mental health, ask gut questions. They can identify early warning signs. Children have problems going to the bathroom before they have mental health problems. So implications for both medical and psychological interventions are spurring new research at rates we haven't seen in decades. And what is the vagus nerve? It's our gut-brain superhighway. That's how all our chemicals get transported. Our vagus nerve transports the biochemicals we make in our gut. That's our second brain throughout our body, especially to our first brain. Remember, our DNA has a preset on go unless we place the brakes. And you know what? Our upset is run by our spinal cord. And guess what? Our vagus nerves do the opposite. Now, we have upset as our accelerator and reset as our brakes. Spinal cords are upset, vagus nerves are our reset. So the vagus nerve is terribly important. These are just the opposite. Speeds heart rate, slows heart rate, breathing in, breathing out. Look, regulates elimination, slows elimination. Breathing shallowly and rapidly or holding our breath adds cortisol and speeds us up more. Breathing out longer than we breathe in calms us down and applies the brakes. Which one do we want to give the most oxygen to? If we break our spinal cord, our vagus nerves keep us alive. All right, here's the bottom line. Positive stress management and resilience are built and formed like we teach sports and fundamental motor skills by consistent, repeated modeling, coaching, and practice of skill sets. First, we build a skill or a set of skills, and then we practice them until we don't have to think about it. When you don't have to think about it, it's a habit. Now, this requires calm demonstration and modeling, calm explicit instruction, calm coaching and practice, calm positive feedback, and calm support and encouragement. Repeat, 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 practice, practice, practice until it's a habit. Now, how long is it going to take you to be able to build a habit? Go from A to B. The more trauma experienced by the person, the longer the journey will be. Now, habits wire and rewire. So habits, a learned attitude or behavior or skill, which through regular, consistent repetition and practice becomes automatic. It's accomplished without thinking. It's a learned reflex, like walking and talking. As babies, it's a slow process. The average time to reach automacy, that's doing it without thinking, is 66 days with a range of 18 to 254 days. Or if you had my middle child, oh Lord, slow progress and better than no progress. Now let's talk about mental health disorders, the last thing we're going to do. Healthcare professionals have a handbook called the DSM-5. Don't expect everybody to know this. It's the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, 5th edition. That's what DSM-5 comes from. It's used for diagnosing symptoms that can show whether or not our emotions, attitudes, thoughts, thinking, and behavior have become disorderly or disordered. That's what the book is for. In other words, disordered. Are you on or off the beam? Are you traumatized or not? Now, remember that book that I told you about, 2009, Preventing Mental, Emotional, and Behavioral Disorders Among Young People. Mind-blowing. You mix that with the DSM-5, and here's what you find out. Children and youth are most at risk for the following mental, emotional, behavioral health disorders. Now, these are affective mental, emotional disorders, and these are the 3 that youth are most at risk for: anxiety, depression, mood disorders, and post-traumatic stress disorder, which under the age 14 is called child traumatic stress. Now, these are the behavioral health disorders that youth are most at risk for: conduct disorder, oppositional defiant disorder, obsessive compulsive disorders, eating disorders, substance use disorders, and self-harm disorders. Oh, isn't that amazing? You know, we didn't have conduct oppositional conduct and what was that, compulsive disorder? Yeah, we had conduct, and we didn't have conduct and oppositional defiant disorder for a long, long time. Knocked off the beam. That'll get you there. Now, this same National Council report showed that most mental, emotional, behavioral disorders have their roots in childhood and adolescence, when the brain is still building and developing. 75% of them begin prior to age 24, and 50% begin prior to age 14. So what you guys are doing in your state is remarkable. Untamed and unmanaged survival reflexes are linked to clusters of preventable mental, emotional, behavioral problems. And when survival reflexes are ignored or punished, they can escalate into a disorder. Okay, look. Whenever we're fight, flight, and freeze stays there and we do nothing to make it less, they're going to be knocked off. And when you punish them or ignore these behaviors, they're going to have a disorder. But look, symptoms show up 2 to 4 years before reaching the criteria for a disorder. So we have time to prevent it. And sometimes we need both physical and mental help to get over mental illness. Sometimes healthcare professionals may prescribe a patient an outside chemical medication to aid him in taming and managing his survival reflexes. These are medications for pain, anxiety, and depression, and they're called psychoactive psychotropic medications, and they're based on our own biochemicals. Look, let me move this little thing over here. These medications help tame and manage our survival reflexes and ease our physical and psychological discomfort. But believe me, a doctor that makes this prescription for you must also refer you to someone who can teach you the skills and build your resilience, because you're going to be on the chemicals so much longer. The more you build your skills and your resilience, the less you're going to have to rely on that medication. All right, this is our last couple of slides. Learning and development depend on a child's mental health. Teaching children how to manage distress, their energy, and managing distress is managing energy. Your blood, oxygen, energy have to go somewhere to cope with problems and be resilient, to literally step over trauma. You're going to be knocked off the bench, get back up on it. These should be our top priority. This should be the number one thing we do. Calming, social, emotional skills and support help to mitigate the negative effects of trauma and prevent mental health problems. And research shows when we can meet our children's needs and reduce the causes of their stress, or if we can't reduce the stress, teach them how to overcome and manage it, we can reduce up to 50% of children's mental health disorders. I'm happy with that. Reduce child abuse, because when the child gets nutty, parents get out of control. Increase school success and graduation rates, reduce juvenile referrals to juvenile justice, and reduce up to 40% of adult mental health disorders. Because if you don't do something, they're going to become adults with the same mental disorder that they had during childhood. Unmitigated stress is linked to numbers of preventable emotional and mental behavioral disorders, as well as certain physical illnesses. And risks for these disorders are higher during the developmental years than any other period, birth to 25. And physical and psychological distress warnings, alarms, or pre-wired by DNA are automatic. They're called fight, flight, and freeze, and nature controls these. Now, if a person develops positive distress management, PDM habits, skills so well practiced that can be done without thinking are as automatic as those reflex behaviors, the progression toward these disorders, illnesses, and diseases can be interrupted or slowed or ended. You have a bulletproof vest for them. Now, look, we got to focus on the PDM skills and habits can be used when you're naked and alone because they're most effective. And remember that our own view and our collective and individual roles in addressing them affects our ability to manage our own behaviors. So, and to change them. Okay, my darlings, we started a little late. We may be finishing a little late. I have a session called inhaler, and I may just add that to our last session because becoming the inhaler for someone makes a difference. Now it's 11:30 and we started late, so we're going to ask questions if there are any questions and answers now. And I'm going to ask the person who's facilitating for me to look at the questions and the comments. And if they still are question comments in your mind, you can read those questions to me, kind of consolidate them and read me one question that represents some of them, all of them. And I'm going to put myself back up here. Hello.
Okay, Karen, it's Adrian. I think there's just one question in the chat box so far, and it says,
Okay.
what happens when children are put on antidepressants?
It depends on the child and how much medication and antidepressants they're on and what antidepressant medication they're using. I can't answer that, but let me tell you what should happen. They should not be on the medication without also being taught the skills for calming down. The breathing skills, ones that we're doing in that last session. Nobody should be placed on medications to manage their mental health without being taught how to manage their mental health so they can wean themselves off the medication. They should, if they are exhibiting symptoms of depression, exhibit fewer symptoms. But it depends on the medication and the size of the child and whether the child grows while being given that medication, because when the child grows, sometimes medication needs to be changed, especially ADHD medication. So I don't know until I know the child's size, weight, the symptoms they were exhibiting, how long they exhibited the symptoms, how intense those symptoms were, them, what medication was prescribed at what dosage and what level. Do you see what I'm saying? Ideally, the person giving your child the medication wanted them to improve, not be as depressed. But I need to tell you something else. Science has shown that anxiety always precedes, comes before depression. So your child was in anxiety for quite a while, just not recognized, not able to describe it. Children don't even know they have anxiety because it's so normal to them to be upset. But so, really what you have to do is look for both anxiety and depression, because anxiety comes before depression. And probably your child had depression fairly longer than you think, because depression has lots of different symptoms. Hopefully the medication helps, but you must be teaching the child at least some, or try use all that you possibly can out of our last session. Be sure to attend that one. I know that didn't help you at all, but I can't really answer without knowing all those questions answered.
All right, thank you. So there aren't any other questions in the chat box, but it looks like Amber raised your hand. I don't know if you would just have a question you wanted to shout out.
Ooh.
Yeah, I have a question. Can you hear me?
No, you're very quiet. I can't hear you.
Oh, okay, hang on a second. Okay, how about now?
Yep, that's better.
Thank you. So my question is just about like self-injurious behavior and why that's not that I disagree, but like I'm just curious why that's considered like a freezing response as opposed to like a freezing slash fighting response, just because like doing something harmful to others is considered fight, but then like and so I'm just wondering if that is something that like in some ways could be conceptualized as like inwardly like I guess internalizing this, like I guess like if you've been harmed by others, then like taking that on and doing it to yourself. So I was just curious if you could talk about that.
That's actually one of the ways that people cope. That's a coping skill. It's a negative coping skill. It hurts so bad that if you hurt it more, you get some relief because you're building endorphins. When I do my chemical stuff, and I'll talk about I do just the chemical stuff all by itself, I talk about how we make our own endorphins, and pain stimulates the flow of those endorphins. But if you're harmed and you are hurting psychologically, you can hurt yourself physically and get in more endorphins. Why is it that when we cut ourselves, we're relieved of pain, although we're creating pain for ourselves? That's because we're getting pain medication from our own body, our own biochemicals, our endorphins. That's our body's morphine. And so we have learned that if we will trigger more pain, it's physical pain as well as psychological pain. Our psychological pain can be reduced by our physical pain because we're using the same chemicals. We have pain in the same center. Physical pain and psychological pain are in the same center of our brain. So endorphins work on both psychological pain and physical pain. So if I'm having psychological pain and I do not know how to end it, but I have found that if I create myself a little more pain, whatever I'm doing to harm myself, I'm going to get some reward for that. If I can create enough acute, immediate pain. But that's why if I'm cutting myself, I'm going to have to cut more, because once those nerves are cut, they have formed scar tissue and they're not good anymore. You can't use those. You got to move on. You got to go to a more sensitive place. I cut multiple times, and most of those sensitive places are covered up by clothes. Some people are not hiding it; they're just covering up, the clothing with clothing. And so, in your genitals is the most sensitive place. That's where most people end and have to ask for help, because there's no place left that they can cut several times that will give them the amount of endorphin they want. They've worn out their mechanism. Does that help?
Yeah, that was definitely exactly what I was looking for. Thank you.
Oh, good. I do a session on harmful relief strategies. And we talk about all the chemistry that's there to relieve your pain and how it can be misused. It is extremely hard to help a person get off of that because it becomes such a habit. You're using a drug to deal with everything, but you're not using an outside drug, so you feel better. You're controlling this, just you and the sharp instrument. And it's at your time and you get it on control. You feel like you're in control. You're not in control of anything because you're just using a drug, but you're making the drug, which is kind of sinister, because it traps you. That's a great question. Great.
Okay,
Anybody
and I
else?
think we have, two more just came in, and I think they're kind of touching on that last question. Someone asked, is it accurate to say that self-harm comes from a place of numbness?
Some people describe numbness, but it's not. When you are in pain, psychological pain, you really are feeling the pain so acutely that you need something to rub it out. And people who abuse themselves are looking for a way to rub it out. People who use sex that way will do multiple sex partners and multiple times a day just to feel the feeling of just the relief of not feeling the way they felt. So it doesn't matter which chemical you're using. And outside chemical, but numb usually comes from a level of depression where you don't feel anything. You're just dead. They say, are you upset? Are you sad? No, I'm just nothing. I've run out of energy to spend on any emotion. And that's basically what it is. You're out of energy. You just don't have it to spend anymore. You can't be sad, upset, angry, afraid, alone, whatever. I just don't function anymore. I've run out. Does that make sense? Hello? Anybody?
I'm not sure Paula asked that, so I'm not sure if that makes sense to her or not.
Okay.
But thank you for answering that. And then the last one is that why if children are hurting, they get angry?
They get angry because that's how they're wired, and we haven't taught them any other way to be. And I'm an old woman now, and I've had, to live with my temperament my entire life, and I didn't even understand it until I was in, college. And I met my husband, and he said, your temperament is going to kill you because you don't have any way of controlling it. And, literally, his parents had taught him things like framing and taming. They actually called it that. They actually taught him that. They taught him how to breathe. They taught him how to manage his own emotion. I never heard of parents doing that. My parents just slapped each other and me. And so I didn't understand any of that. It's kids do what they know to do, or just what their instincts will share them to do. And if you don't teach them otherwise, if you don't model it, if you don't reinforce it, if it doesn't get reinforced like walking and talking, if it's not something they repeat thousands of times with help before they ever try it alone, it's not going to become a habit. And when it's not a habit, they can't do it without thinking. And if they can't do it without thinking, they're screwed.
Thank you. That the person who asked that said that was very helpful and it makes sense to them. So thank you, Karen.
Cool. Thank you, dear.
Yes, that was the last question in the chat box, but I just have a question for you, Karen, kind of a wrap up one. I think while you were speaking after the first time I asked about the slides were blank, more people were still having issues with that throughout the presentation. So I don't know if you just want to share with the group. Do you share your slides? Do you want them to
Oh yeah.
contact
In fact,
you?
I sent Julie a
Okay,
handout,
Julie.
which is 2 up, has all the information. In fact, I think it's got almost all, it's everything, every slide. And those slides are, they're, like I say, they're very large. They're 2 up, half page. And I sent them this morning by Dropbox. If you can get into Julie's email, or give me your email.
Okay.
You know my email, right? Karen Williams Brain at
Yes.
outlook.com.
Yes.
Karen, and it's at the, every slide has it on there.
Okay.
So Karen Williams Brain, email me. I'll email
Okay.
the Dropbox message to you. Okay.
Okay. Perfect.
And everybody
I
can
also,
request those if you get them on your website,
okay.
or whatever.
Perfect. And just for everyone, I also put Julie's email in the chat because I'm doing the training in place of her. So if you have any questions too, her email is also in there and she will get back to you.
Okay, something else, darling.
Mhm.
Check your recording. If the recording didn't pick up the slides, that's the thing to be really concerned about.
Okay.
So
I will
look
do
at your recording to make sure that it actually recorded everything. And if you didn't, I record them myself. So
Okay.
I can do that over for you if you need to.
Perfect. Thank you. I guess we actually, one more question just popped in.
Cool.
And someone said, I'm noticing more and more teens having isolated panic attacks. I have supported them with grounding techniques, but should we be referring these teens to mental health services? And can panic attacks be isolated events?
Panic attacks. Panic attacks are a significant symptom of other issues. Anxiety, precedes depression. If these aren't dealt with in a more systemic way rather than one-ons, the panic attack is just losing it completely just for the moment. You can get them all calmed down. They're doing all right. They seem to be doing all right for days. But those things are cumulative. So they cannot really be managed as a one-off. You can deal with them as a one-off. You must deal with them. And you're brilliant if you're able to calm them down. That's fantastic. And in our last session, we're going to deal with a lot of different ways you can do it. So if it doesn't work for one child, it works for another. They want to know what they can do on a long-term basis, but they need a long-term solution. And that's really a mental health warning. That's tremendous mental health warning, because what they've done is that panic has thrown them off the beam. And literally, kids need to think about their mental health as being on that beam. And so they can tell you which end of the beam am I on, or I'm in the middle. And it's like, or am I off? And they'll tell you that. They go, oh no, man, I'm flipped off the beam. Right now, I'm just out of there. And it's like, okay, so how do we step back up on, and how do I hold your hand while you do it? And what are we going to do to help you do this? For some kids, they don't have a chance of a snowball in hell because they can't, you can't take on the dog. What really helps panic attacks is having something there that you can manage all the time. So that's the naked and alone thing. And they don't always remember what to do. So you got to remind them. They've got to have reminders all around them. Their parents don't know what to do, so they don't remind them. But let me tell you what, the panic attacks, and they're having them because they are so full of anxiety, which at some point they're going to go to depression, and they're going to be trying to use all sorts of things to fix that depressed feeling. That's a pain. Treat that as a pain. And so yeah, I'm so glad you're there and you're doing what you're doing, but a panic attack is not ever a one-off. It's a tip of an iceberg, stuff below it like crazy. I don't know how many of your schools offer support groups, but that's one of the most effective ways of dealing with all of this craziness that kids get into is support groups. And you should probably have 10 or 15 of them on a regular campus. I mean, it's like kids going through divorce, kids getting, they just have issues no one ever speaks to them about, and they need a place where they can do it confidentially. And in many cases, they need, one-on-one. And there's not enough of that. But yeah, I worry about any kid that has a panic attack. There's something else down below. I'm sorry. That might not been much help. But you do need to be sure to come to the fourth session, which is on the 26th, because I'm going to go through all 60 of the things that we can do and that they can do. And I'm going to focus on the ones that you do naked and alone. But I will have the others in there, so that you can have. Animals are most wonderful, wonderful thing. Young people who have what they call them, resiliency dogs, comfort dogs better than anything else. And they're with them, they can begin to pet them. People definitely use them for pulling their hair as a reflex. And so I forgot what that's called, trick a dog, blah, 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 blah. But you pet the dog, you don't pull your own hair. So having dogs around, therapy dogs they call, counselor dogs, whatever, anxiety dogs, makes a giant difference as well. Just having them available in the school, walking around. If you have a resource officer, get him a dog that can be petted, not one sniffing for drugs. So, did that make sense? Hello.
Yes, they said, thank you so very much.
You're so welcome. I'm so glad it did. I blabble a lot. That's what my husband used to say. Your mouth is vaccinated with a phonograph needle. Who knows what a phonograph needle is nowadays? Okay, so where are we? Are we good?
Yeah, I think that was the last question. So anything else you want to add, Karen? Thank you so much.
Oh, I'm so glad we did this. I'm so glad I finally got in. I'm glad it worked. And check your recording. If it's not okay, and listen, guys, get that handout. It's everything that's there. You can use, and actually you can use those slides from the handout. You can just make a photo of them. Not telling you to do it, but you can. Nobody will ever know. It's very good for teaching kids. That's what I use. What I used today and what I used last time. Session 1 was all what I used with teenagers. So use them. Okay, I'm going to go away.
Perfect. Thanks, Karen.
Thank you, dear. Oh, email me.
Yes, I will.
Okay, bye.